Explain to us what the Aura product is and why you think it's so special or unique, especially with our business model.
This opens up and it gives the customer the possibility that they can own the system in year 6. It's part loan, but it also is a lease for the first 5 years, which enables investors to go in and capture those tax credits. I think we've created a unique solution with the Aura product.
This is the Solar Disruption Theory.
This is the Solar Disruption Theory podcast. My name is Chad Towner. I'm your host, and this is season 7. I cannot believe we've been doing this for 7 seasons. I've been here for, I think, 4 of them. But with me today to kick off this season is a man who has been here for all 7 seasons. He's the CEO of Freedom Forever. His name is Brett Bouchy. Brett, how you doing? It's December 2025. Alive in 25. How are you?
Doing good. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm glad 25 is coming to a close. It has been a rough year ever since in May when the big, beautiful bill debuted in the House. It seems like that was years ago. That was only 7 months ago. And it just seems like it has been chaos ever since. It's still continuing, but I'm feeling very optimistic around 26, even though 25 is coming to a close.
Yeah, it definitely feels like things are starting to shift and the industry is kind of starting to round a corner, and we'll get into all of that. And so you mentioned the bill. We kind of, it was this big, scary moment for a couple months, and then the bill ended up getting signed, and it turned out to be okay. Still not a win for solar, but at least survivable for the short term. Let's talk about what that has, what happened with the bill. And we've kind of covered this, but essentially loans or purchases where the customer's buying solar, those tax credits are going away. And so the only benefits to going solar now is to go through third-party ownership because those tax credits are still in place for the next couple of years. What is kind of the overall summary of what ended up coming out of the bill?
Yeah, well, first of all, it just created a massive amount of uncertainty, and that led specifically to bankruptcies of 2 of our finance companies that happened post-bill. One of those finance companies that were in trouble prior to that, Sonova, went bankrupt in June. But Mosaic, I think, was a direct result of the uncertainty around the bill, and they filed for bankruptcy in June. And obviously with us having a long-standing partnership with them, that created a lot of havoc, not only for the industry, but also for Freedom. So, and that was kind of what kicked it off. But then we finally got the bill signed and we realized, oh, wow, we're going to survive. But there was times that we had doubt that this was going to be the crater that hits the earth, that does that to our industry. And it had the ability to kill our industry, and it did not. And so I'm very, very thankful for that. But even after the bill was passed on July 4th, then right on the heels of that, you had the executive order, which created more uncertainty. Once we got through the next 45, 60 days, when we realized there wasn't a lot of teeth to the executive order, there became a sense of normalcy and stability. But it still was a very, very painful month. You had all the finance companies that hadn't done securitizations. They had not liquidated any assets. And most of the finance companies are middlemen, meaning they hold projects on their balance sheet and then they sell them in the form of securitizations. And that just did not happen. The market became frozen. It was very much like what happened in 2008 and 2009 with the real estate industry, but we made it through. But it has been painful, and we're still seeing remnants, all right, that still exist today. And every week and every month it gets slightly better. But now what we're all dealing with is fiat concerns, all right, is the new tables go from 45% on domestic content to 50%. Then you also have this added issue that a lot of modules and batteries are not FEOC compliant. And FEOC is just, to make it simple, is that if you have any foreign entity concerned around the ownership of the entity manufacturing a product, it doesn't matter if you're if it's domestic content eligible, it just doesn't work in 2026. And so this is something that the Trump administration has put in place to discourage foreign ownership, having like involvement in the renewable energy, and it's working, but it's creating chaos. There's entire companies that their product line are not eligible and essentially are worthless on January 1. And so you're just seeing very limited SKUs of like all the finance companies on modules and batteries. And that is creating increased costs on equipment and just more uncertainty headed into 2026. And it's really creating like these battle lines that are being drawn by, companies like Tesla and Enphase and SolarEdge around like, can you get domestic content with this product? Are you eligible for batteries, but can you get there with modules and everything else? And it's not as easy as it seems right now.
All right, so let's talk about the foreign entities of concern, right? FIOC, and these are like countries that if a certain percentage of the ownership of these companies are from these countries, then their products are not eligible for the domestic content, right? And so what are the countries? I know China is one of them.
It's gray. That is part of the problem, is that gray areas create uncertainty.
Yeah.
And so if you have any concern at all, the finance companies are just not using their products.
Jeez.
So, and when you have a fuzziness, all right, on what's eligible and what's not eligible, that is like uncertainty is worse than certainty. Even bad certainty is better than complete uncertainty, which I feel like is somewhere we've lived in. And so there's a few companies that have certainty that are cleared, but a lot of companies are not. And there's a lot of changes. Some people may have equipment that believe will be eligible for domestic content in Q2, but not in Q1. So Q1 is going to create more stress around this issue and is going to create more challenges for installers at the early part of 26. And then you also see the increase on domestic content percentages going from 45% to 50%. Why that's so important is because before, to get to 45%, you had a lot of pathways to get there. At 50%, it reduces the amount of pathways to get domestic content. And you can see with all of the actions of the finance companies, like they don't want you to install without domestic content. And there's huge penalties in the forms of lower EPCs or loss of rebates. And if you're in the industry and you don't understand this, like you're doing a disservice. Like you really need to understand the importance of domestic content and why these tables continue to change. And much to no one's surprise, is at the end of Q1, there's rumored to be new tables that can come out. And everybody knows the tables that came out last April disadvantaged Tesla for a variety of different reasons. So we don't know what's going to happen. And it's everybody's guess, anyone's guess to what the new tables are going to look like at the end of Q1. And that is even not like a specific time frame. Like we're hearing the end of Q1, but it may be Q2. You don't know. And it just creates so many of these challenges. It is so much more difficult to work in our industry today than it was 2 years ago. And a lot of that is by design by the administration, which is unfortunate. But I do think it's really creating a winnowing process. And you're seeing like a lot of the weaker people leave the industry, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I would love for it to not be so challenging because it's challenging for anybody. And anyone that tells you that it's not challenging or everything is fine with their company, you should run from them because it is not fine. There's always challenges. And everybody I talk to that would be open and transparent know that they're facing challenges that they haven't maybe in the history of residential solar. And that's okay. Like we need to acknowledge them and we need to come up with new solutions in terms of how we work in this industry. And what worked a year ago, 2 years ago, and 3 years ago does not work today. That is a certainty. And how well did you adapt? And if people are doing the same thing that they did a year, 2, 3 years ago, you're going to wake up, they're not going to be around. You have to change. 25D negatively affected a lot of the markets that we opened in the last 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
Those are markets like Montana and Washington, in markets that have electricity rates, a kilowatt hour rate, you're competing with 12, 13, 14, 15 cents. And it just doesn't work when the tax credit goes away.
Yep.
And now we're seeing some creative like products that are out there, like our new Aura product that comes out. And this is going to lock some of that, but it still is created challenges. And we've had to reduce our footprint within the industry because of 25D going away. It just doesn't make sense in a lot of those markets. It doesn't mean that it won't make sense in markets like Washington and Montana or Utah long-term. It just doesn't make any sense today. I'm hoping that late 26, 27, we can go back into those markets. But something needs to change. So either costs need to come down more or the cost of electricity needs to go up in those markets. Those are the two things that are the death of an industry, because we do believe with the new hybrid products that are coming out like Aura, that it does open up those scenarios to get tax credits in markets that were considered kind of loan-heavy states.
Yeah, I want to dive deep into a lot of these ways in which Freedom has adapted throughout this bill and then all the aftermath. So you mentioned Aura. I want to get to that. You also mentioned several states. Freedom has opted to discontinue operations in a handful of states that we were previously doing well in because there's no longer the tax credits. It's a purchase-only market. So what are some of the other things that Freedom has done to adapt to this new environment? We just signed a new deal with Tesla, right? And that's a big, a deep partnership. I think it's the biggest deal anyone's ever done with Tesla batteries.
Yes, I think it's the biggest thing that has happened between Tesla and a residential solar manufacturer. It's incredible for us. But what's crazy in today's scenario is on January 1, a lot of companies are having to choose between either Enphase or SolarEdge and Tesla. We have figured out a pathway to keep going down. Like, Tesla's battery is the best battery out of the market. No offense to Enphase or SolarEdge or any other battery, Franklin, that's out there, it's inferior to Powerwall 3. That's what you want to sell to your customers. But if you can't achieve domestic content with Tesla, that is problematic. And a lot of people are struggling. They don't have the advantages that they don't. They don't have access to Q cells, which are very, very limited for a variety of different reasons. We do. And so that enables us to strike a deal with the premier battery option in residential solar. But a lot of the medium-sized installers, the small installers, are going to be pigeonholed that they're going to have to sell either SolarEdge or Enphase or Franklin batteries. Pretty much SolarEdge, because Franklin has their own FIOC issues that everybody knows about. But I think SolarEdge and Enphase are really going to take some significant market share in the battery market, even though their product, in my opinion, is inferior to the Tesla Powerwall 3.
And so going back to like before the big beautiful bill, it wasn't 45% and it wasn't going to be 50% on January 1, right? Everybody was able to achieve domestic content. I think it was like 44.4% was what everyone was typically kind of achieving just through inverters
And racking,
right? And so by just adding that one extra little percentage, it took so many manufacturers out of domestic content. And then by adding 5 more percent starting January 1 makes it even harder. And so you're saying we have a path to still achieve domestic content, even though we're using Tesla Powerwall 3, which is not domestic content. There's a high enough.
Let me clarify. It is domestic content on the battery portion, and you have to bifurcate the two.
The inverter on the Powerwall 3 is not domestic content today.
Correct.
But the battery is. So when you couple those with some other creative things that we've done, overall, we'll still be able to achieve that minimum 50% threshold to achieve to get to domestic content even after January 1.
That is correct, and that's what makes us different. There's no one else that have the amount of like access to other domestic content issues that are out there that is going to give us this competitive advantage. And the holy grail is getting domestic content sales. All right. And when you look at all of the things that are being manufactured, even to get to 50%, they're not using domestic content cells. I believe we will be the first company. I know we will be the first company in Q2 to be installing with domestic content cells. I can't talk about any more than that, but like that is the reason we went into business and we secured the deal with Tesla's, because no one else can guarantee that. And if I was anybody else other than Freedom, I would probably be going the Enphase. And so I understand why people are making those decisions.
Yeah.
They have to. They don't have a choice. And but we try to figure out a pathway with Tesla because it is the superior battery product that I think is going to be very, very difficult to get a hold of because of all of these ever-changing rules in Q1 and Q2 and Q3 and Q4. And it's created this dynamic of this like battle between, Enphase and SolarEdge and Tesla on the battery side. And they do have Enphase and SolarEdge a little bit of an advantage because of the domestic content tables that were rolled out on April 15th. But like we have faith in Elon and Tesla. We have a lot of different creative solutions that we were willing to agree to a 3-year deal where we're predominantly going to be doing Tesla batteries on all of our installs.
I know our sales reps love selling Tesla. I know our crews love installing Tesla, and I know customers love the brand, right? And so, and to your point, you said earlier, it's kind of undisputed that it's a superior battery. So
yeah, and I've been consistent on this. Like by far the best inverter is SolarEdge because of the production. When you look at the production component, you get approximately 2% more production on SolarEdge versus Enphase. You have more failures in the first 12 months with SolarEdge, but to me, the production far outweighs the installation failures. So to me, I've always been consistent on this, and the best battery has always been the Powerwall 3. But a lot of times we have been focused more on a SolarEdge battery because of the domestic content advantages or disadvantages that Tesla had. So we were very creative working with the Tesla energy leadership to make sure that we came up with multiple paths forward on domestic content, because that is the key to our industry in 26 and beyond.
all right, so you mentioned Aura earlier. I want to dig into that a little bit more. So historically, there's been a loan, or somebody could pay cash for solar. We call that a purchase, whether it's a loan or they pay cash, or TPO, third-party ownership, whether it's a lease or a power purchase agreement. But this is somewhat of a hybrid. Explain to us what the Aura product is and why you think it's so special or unique, especially with our business model.
Yeah, it's simple. We spent a lot of time and energy developing the first hybrid product that never made it to market, ironically, because of Mosaic's bankruptcy. So they were very, very close to launching it. They were betting their future on it. It's one of the reasons they got into trouble when there was so much uncertainty. But the reality is that this opens up and it gives the customer the possibility that they can own the system in year 6. So that's why it's a hybrid. It's like it's part loan, but it also is a lease for the first 5 years, which enables investors to go in and and capture those tax credits that you can't get on January 1. The other advantages of having that is, in addition to capturing the tax credit, is that even during the interim time period, VPP, virtual power plants, are becoming really, really important.
Yeah.
I, for example, get $300 a month. I have 6 power walls on my home. I get $50 a month of VPP credit for Tesla to use it through their program, which is exclusive to Powerwalls.
Yeah.
It's incredible. When I got the system, I bought it, I didn't expect to be getting an additional $300 a month. So I took my, how much, I'm embarrassed to say how much my bill was. My average bill was over $1,200.
Yeah.
My average bill then went to like $20 But now I'm like getting a $300 VPP credit a month. So I'm positive to the tune of, I went from a $1,200 expense on average. In the summers, it was over $2,000 to now I'm in the positive by $280. And you're starting to see that with incredible programs like Good Grid in Texas and some of the stuff in California. But on a TPO offering, you cede all of your rights on VPP to the finance company. They own the rights, not the customer. So in the hybrid product, even during that 5-year period where you don't own the system and somebody else owns the system, you get 30% of all compensation collected in that interim time period. And once you get the system in your name, you get 100% of the VPP rights. And we're now in the embryonic stage of what is VPP. And what we get today in California, in Texas, and some of the other markets will pale into comparison of what people project it will be 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years from now. So I think that's really, really important that people grasp and understand that through TPO, you are ceding and you're giving those rights. And it's not a bad thing. They're paying you for it. That's factored into the EPCs that they are paying you on TPO. But if you could figure out a product where you could own the system and get those VPP rights long-term, that could be a gold mine. Like that is a product that is going to take market share in 2026 if done right. And I think we've like created a unique solution with the Aura product.
Yeah. And to be fair, $1,200 in Southern California is probably like a $400 bill for the rest of the United States. But 6 power walls seems a little bit excessive, Brett, but I've seen your ground mount array on the side of your house.
It's not a byproduct of my house. It's the fact that I don't think anybody knows this about me, but like I literally never have dirty clothes ever. The clothes that I take off at night are clean in the morning. That's literally every day.
Same outfit every day, and it would still be clean.
I could literally clean out my closet, have one outfit, and it would be clean every day when I woke up. So like that is a unique thing, but that's why we use so much energy. That's a flaw. My wife and I probably need to talk a little bit more about that.
I remember she went out of town. It was a total disaster at the Bouchy home for a couple of days. But so back to Aura, it seems like this best of both worlds kind of perfect match between maximizing the tax credits, but giving the customer what's best for them in the sense of ownership. And it's a prepaid lease, right? And so you get the benefits of like production guarantees and service that comes with a lease wrapped inside of this loan that the customer can eventually own the system. So, and you mentioned Mosaic, I remember like they were days away from inking that deal and the big, beautiful bill came out and all of a sudden, that deal was put on pause and we know what happened from there. So
it wasn't days. It was literally, they had a restaurant. The people do not understand, had a restaurant rented out, ready to celebrate and sign the deal. It was done. And that's when the rumors of the bill was going to happen. And that they just basically said, hey, let's push it for a week. Let's see what this bill, because the rumor was there was going to come out with a bill that potentially was going to be bad for residential solar and loans. And again, that's what put everything on pause, and that's what started the pause. And then when it came out, it just kind of mushroomed and it delayed it longer and longer and longer. And one like uncertainty can be the death of an industry, and it was certainly the death of Mosaic.
Yeah, brings back I remember where I was when you took that call. I was with you. We were shopping for Mother's Day gifts. That was a crazy, crazy day. But here we are in December of 2025, and you just said, I heard on a call earlier today with all of our sales leaders, you just said that we've had the best 2-week run in like the last 7 months since the introduction of since the big beautiful bill came out of the House Ways and Means Committee back in May. So what do you mean by that? We've got Aura launching next week. We just inked the Tesla deal. We still have a deep partnership with SolarEdge. So maybe speak to that a little bit. But why did you say that this has been the best 2 weeks since that fateful day back in May?
Yeah, so like we've been able to navigate like and still have an incredible relationship despite the deal that we had with Tesla, because there's some conflict there. We're going to be doing more batteries with Powerwall 3, which means less with SolarEdge. but like we covet their technology on the production side. So it was really incredible that we're able to thread the needle and extend the partnership that we're going to be announcing in the next few days. But also in addition to that is something that is public knowledge, is that back in June, all right, Q-Cells, which was an incredible strategic partner with us. A lot of people, I think, know this. Maybe they don't know this. We were probably 50% of all of NFIN's volume. Why that's related to Q-Cell is because Q-Cell is a wholly owned subsidiary of Hanwha. NFIN is also a wholly owned subsidiary for Hanwha. So there was a lot of strategic importance. We believed that the key to domestic content would go through Q-Cell. And then we had some speed bumps when all of a sudden the administration seized a bunch of cells, and that brought manufacturing in Georgia, this $4 billion plant that Q-Cell and Hanwha invested into, ground to a halt so much that they had to furlough employees and they had to stop manufacturing. So in the last couple of weeks, they were able to bring some of those furloughed employees back, and they started manufacturing on a limited scale. Because of our strategic partnership with them, that's a huge advantage for us. So those are the reasons. There's 4 reasons that have all happened in the last 2 weeks that have been incredible for Freedom and in many respects our industry. Q-Cell is a very positive development for our industry. And so a lot of the issues that NFIN had as a financier, I believe, were directly related to the Q-Cell seizure of the cells. And the fact that they're going to get back up and manufacture at a time that we desperately need and there's a shortage of modules is phenomenal news. And you pair that with our Tesla and SolarEdge and Aura news, it's been an incredible 2 weeks here.
And do we know yet if or when those Q-Cells modules are going to get released?
The cells have been released and we are taking delivery. We've already started taking delivery on new products, and we hadn't seen a lot of Q-Cell modules. We'll take our first new delivery next week of Q-Cell modules that have been manufactured in December, hot off the presses.
So exciting. So exciting. And yeah, it's been such a grind. I've seen you go through this whole process, and there's just been every day, every hour, some days has just had a whole new challenge, a new existential crisis. I've only seen you work harder and just double down on our mission, on the vision. We have retracted and pulled out of a couple of states that it just didn't pencil anymore. And so, does that mean that this is a pivot in Freedom's business model? We wanted to be 50 states. We want to be 50% market share. Does that mean that's a pivot, or what has this done to Freedom's long-term overall game plan?
Yeah, nothing has changed. All this has done is pause some of the momentum that we had in some of the states. And our goal is to be in all 50 states, by the end of 27, 28 at the latest. This might mean it might be 28, might be 29, it might be 30. We have to be fiscally responsible and make sure that the costs make sense, or the cost of electricity has went up in those markets. What is hard to determine is that we're seeing double-digit increases in so many different states in terms of their energy costs. If that continues to happen, that will offset the increased expenses and some of the tax credits that we've lost. But with the Aura product, we can capture those tax credits again. So I am feeling more optimistic. And as I start seeing some of these states that didn't make sense at 14 cents and they get a 15% increase, all of a sudden they're at 16 cents.
Right.
And that offsets the increased costs on equipment that we're currently having. The other thing, at some point, this restriction of supply that is a manufactured problem, all right, that comes from our administration will go away at some point.
Right.
Right now, we're still in the midst of it. So it's hard to say, it's never going to go away. That is an emotional response that people have. It's going to go away at some point.
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen in Q2 and Q3. Once that happens, costs come down. You could see us re-enter some of these markets in 26, but the mission hasn't changed. The mission is to accelerate the rate of residential adoption in the U.S. by bringing the cost down to the consumer and disrupting the industry. It's why we call this the solar disruption theory. Nothing has changed. All right. But this has created some significant speed bumps, and saying a speed bump, all right, is like a disservice of what we went through. All right. Yeah. The better way to analogize it is like if the speed bumps were 3 feet tall, that's what it feels like 25 was.
Yeah.
Like, how do you get, your car over a 3-foot speed bump? That's what it feels like at times. But, you just have to have tremendous faith. You have to believe in the mission. And, I believe I have just tremendous faith that God has put freedom here for a reason. And it really is to change the world, and nothing has changed, even though it feels like everything has changed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been a wild ride, but I think you mentioned it earlier, a winnowing. It's like been a refining process, and the thing that I keep holding on to is, you've mentioned on this podcast several times that you're a Republican. I'm a Republican. I don't think that the political landscape of the United States will ever be as disfavorable to solar as it is right now, right? With the House, the Senate, the president, and so it could only get better from here. At least, that's how I look at it with every election going forward. And so if we can survive in this environment, you have to think that we'll continue to thrive as things do improve. And you've mentioned that one of the big things that happened during the bill was like finance companies, the money just kind of seemed to stop. The capital markets wasn't interested in buying solar, that nobody was tranching any more projects. And it all kind of starts from there, right? If the money stops at the top, then everybody just gets squeezed on down the chain. Have you seen a change or a shift in the overall appetite and mentality from finance companies or the capital markets that are investing in and buying these securities? What's going on at the financial side of solar?
Yeah, the market is no longer paralyzed, which is the good news. All right. Have we returned to financing terms that we had 2 to 3 years ago? Not even close. All right. And I'm not sure we'll ever get back there. I think it was almost unhealthy. It swung too far in the direction. There were so many financiers chasing not enough deals. They just kept doing creative stuffs to make it easy, which has also opened up like the door for a lot of bad actors within our industry. I think this is going to help. And I think a lot of the bad actors, quite frankly, are choosing to go somewhere else because, there are people out there that are just openly committing fraud. All right. And it's more rampant in our industry than other industries. It's something that people don't want to talk about. And I think this winnowing is they're off to some other industry that it's more easier to complete their scam. I think that's a good thing. But I are starting to see like the tea leaves turn more positive because you're starting to see more securitizations done. There's less uncertainty about it, but you still look at like the overall credit markets. We as an industry are frowned on from a credit standpoint because it's not just the fact that we had 3 finance companies, SunPower, Sunnova, and Mosaic go bankrupt. We've had thousands of residential installers go bankrupt. All right. And that has created like a vacuum of credit. Everyone is scared and you're starting to see it loosen up a little bit, but still not to the point that it needs to be. And like, I have been on this soapbox talking to the finance companies about how much it costs pre-install on an average project. And a lot of people start focusing on it's a few $1,000s. It's actually not. The true cost of a pre-install project is about $9,000. And I can break it down more in detail. I won't do it now, but a lot of people don't understand if you do a full re-roof, you typically have to pay for that pre-install. That's a pre-install cost. and site audits and so many projects you have to build in that you don't get to install. And a lot of people go, my cost of my Aurora proposal and plans was $50 or $100. Yeah. When you have to factor in, you know what? You had to do 12 proposals to get one sale. And of that one sale, only 7/10 of only 70% of those get built. When you actually factor it in, it's $500 a project. All right. But people don't look at it. They look at it from a simple basis. And I think the finance companies need to understand that truly to heal the installer network, there needs to be money paid out faster, whether that's at M1 or pre-install or at install. It's just very, very difficult with the TPO to get financed even after you get install. And because there's 122 different things that you need to do, and if you get 121 of them right, back in school, that was like an A plus 99%, but it's an F in solar because 121 of the correct items, and I'm facetious in the 122, but it really is 122 for some finance companies. I'm not kidding about that number, but it's not for all of them. So like you have to get every single one right. And it's like impossible to be at 100%. And then that just unlocks funding. If I told you how much funding we have locked up post-install today versus 2 years ago when we were predominantly loan, it's mind-boggling, the number and the percentages too. And that needs to improve as an industry if we want the installers to be truly healthy. And that's what the finance companies want.
Yeah, it's just kind of this ever-evolving business. I keep telling a lot of the sales leaders, like, hey, if this was easy, everybody would be doing it at this level. So, but, at the end of the day, you're still bullish on the mission. The mission has not changed. Going into 2026, we've had some major wins, some awesome announcements that you just spoke to. We have a couple of other announcements that we'll probably keep to ourselves for a couple more episodes, but until we maybe push out some press releases. But how do you feel about going into 2026, given everything that's happened, and especially more recently, what's your prediction for 2026 for freedom within the solar industry?
Yeah, one thing before I talk about freedom is that I want to be clear. The unit economics have not gotten worse, and you could argue that they've gotten better.
Yeah.
All right, with domestic content and all of the different ways you could achieve adders in 25. What has happened is it's going to take, especially if you're in the sales world, it's going to take longer for you to get paid. Yeah. All right. And I know that's not what anybody wants to hear, but that's the reality. And it doesn't matter whether you're at Freedom or Sunrun or anyone in the industry, that is the reality of it. And you need to adapt to that. And, people are used to getting paid quickly, installed quickly, with no permits. Like all that stuff is like not going to happen in 26 and beyond. So you have to kind of change your plans around that. And if that's too much for you to overcome, then you probably shouldn't be in the industry. But it's not unit economics that are driving people out of the sales industry. It's how long it takes to get paid, because it's taking longer to get paid by the finance companies. Until the finance companies start paying you faster on TPO products, then you're not going to see improvements on that until that happens. But where freedom will be in 2026 is that we're going to be laser focused on being unique. We want to dominate. We want to be 50% market share. And in many ways, we have a greater chance to take market share in 26 than we ever have, not because our overall top line number is growing at a crazy rate. It's because 26 is going to be a year of contraction. It's going to be the third consecutive year of contraction. I'm almost certain of it. And that's okay. And a lot of people thought 25D would bail out this year, the end of it, in a rush. That's not happening. We are going to have contraction in 24 of over 30%. In 25, it's going to be in double digits, and I'm expecting double digits in 26. But I think freedom, if you can grow at all in that market, you take significant wallet share. if you can grow by 50%, when you look at historically is a terrible year for freedom, that would be incredible in 26.
Yeah, I mean, 50% would put us right around the $2 billion mark, which is kind of what I'm telling people is our goal, which sounds crazy considering just all the adversity that we've been through. But it really does feel like we've done all the hard things. And, you know, one of the things we get criticized for is you see things maybe too early and we get ahead of the game because we're just so far ahead of the rest of the industry or not as reactive. But definitely looking at the landscape, all the other things that we're seeing, it feels like we are just poised to have a massive year in 2026. And we've got some other things that we're going to announce on future episodes. So anything else you want to leave us with as we wrap up our first episode of season 7?
No, the last thing, I'm proud of how our sales organizations have handled themselves through the adversity. I'm proud of the fact that we've done over $1 billion of revenue in the first 3 quarters of this year is crazy to me with that. And I think we're going to finish the year strong, but like, I'm just glad to be here and I'm glad that like 25 is almost over, but I do think that things are turning. And if you had to graph this thing as an industry, I think like I always like was in the investment world. All right. And what you're taught in the investment world is that when everybody is chasing an industry, it's too late.
Yeah.
And most of my successes came in an industry called the natural foods industry, which is huge today. Whole Foods didn't exist. I was buying back then when no one else was buying. That's when you buy low. And in 2022, when the Inflation Reduction Act passed, we had a Democratic Congress, we had the opposite of what we have today.
Right.
Everybody was sky high on our industry. And right now, people are low and people are down in the very depths of the industry. And this is the time to buy. This is the time to double down, triple down, 10x down, 20x down, and that's what we're doing. And if you can do that, you're going to come out of this, all right, with making more money than you ever have if you look at this in a career, whether it's 26, 27, or 28, if you can make it. But like a lot of people don't have the mental fortitude to make it through difficult times. And it takes tremendous faith. And a lot of times is when things are going bad, you have to believe and you have to have faith within our industry. You have to have faith in humanity. Sometimes I get down when I see like the president and the administration just spouting stuff that's complete lies about climate change. Like, how can we be in a world that we all know that our planet is deteriorating, and yet we have people lying about it at the highest levels of our government? That's incredibly discouraging. But like, you need to like stop back and go like, you have to have faith. Like, it will work out. Like, yes, we have some people that have opinions that are wrong. Like, I don't believe that they even know that what they're speaking is just completely fabricated untruths. But the reality is, if we could get through, as you said, this period, man, think about what we can do in the future. And like, we have to start looking about it in such a it's all about today. And the emotion is about is like, how are we going to get through this month in this industry? How are we going to get through 25? When you look at this over a 20-year period, this is the buying opportunity. This is the opportunity where if you can step up in this time and have the mental fortitude to make it, you are going to be wildly successful if you're touching the renewable energy sector. It's only going to get better from here. That's an absolute certainty in my mind. Like, you talk about buying low and buying those companies in the natural foods industry where I had no competition. That's where we lie today. And you can build your own future if you just have faith and believe. And that's what we have to do today.
I remember a couple of years ago, you and I and a couple others were driving through the middle of nowhere in Texas, and we were pretty much out of gas, and we were just determined to get to Buc-ee's because that's like the best gas station ever. But it was like an hour and a half away. I swear it was a long ways away. And we had like less than eighth of a tank, and you just made this decision that we're going to get there no matter what. And I mean the gas light had turned on, and you were letting off the gas going uphill, and and you just kept saying, like, guys, you got to have faith. And it was funny at the time, but we talk about that analogy or that story all the time, because I mean, you literally made it to the gas station, and as you pulled up to the pump, the car died and ran out of gas. But like, we made it. It feels a lot like that's been what 2025 has been. Feels just so good to be back on the upswing and going back on offense leading into 2026. So yeah, I mean, it's for everybody else that's out there. We have all been in as an industry, kind of taking a lot of bullets, but hopefully you guys are seeing a lot of positivity on your side, whether you're inside of Freedom or not. And if you're not, come look at Freedom, because I think we've got some major, I'll call them announcements coming that will really put us in an amazing position for 2026. So thank you, Brett. Thank you for your leadership, for all of the hard work to get us to this point. Thank you guys for listening. We've got more announcements coming. Aura is going live next week. So for everybody who sells with Freedom, that product is going live next week, and we're going to be expanding it as fast as we can in as many states as we can. It is absolutely a game changer in a lot of the markets where we install. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.